Would help if I unmuted myself. Good morning, everybody. This is David Wood with the Chesapeake Stormwater Network. Welcome to our Watershed Hacks for Uncertain Times series. Today we are talking about stormwater art. It's a little bit different topic today than what we usually get into, but I'm really excited about it. We have a ton of great speakers today and also a great stormwater day in general. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to be covering quite a bit of ground today. First, I will give a little bit of background for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time on our Watershed Hacks series. This is a kind of a new series that we've been doing each week for the past about 3 weeks now. Then we're gonna get a little bit of inspiration for our stormwater art that we will eventually take into our backyards. We're gonna be talking about a school scale project at Binford Middle School. And then a really cool project called the Yard of a Yard. Then we're going to talk with all of our experts today, get into a little bit of a discussion on some different ideas and suggestions for how you can integrate art into your stormwater projects, starting kind of in your backyard. But I think a lot of these things can be scaled up to other places as well once things open back up again. We are going to talk about haikus a little bit, so you can already get your brain started, do a few stormwater haikus before we wrap up. And then we have a whole bunch of resources that we're going to share. The idea is to provide you guys with all kinds of different ideas that you can use at home. So we are going to make all of these links available to you. We are recording today's webcast, so if we run a little long and you have to jump off early, no big deal. You can catch it later. We'll get it up either later today or tomorrow. We will also have the full slide deck available, so you can download it and get access to all of the links that we talk about today. So again, for those of you who are joining us for the first time in this webcast series, we do have webcasts usually a couple a month, but we've really ramped it up here in the last couple of weeks with this Watershed Hacks for Uncertain Times. So we're all stuck at home right now. So we thought we'd spend some time talking about things that we can do at home, really focusing on solutions that are practical and low cost. So things that you can get your hands on, hopefully available, either that can be shipped to your house or you might have on hand already. Things that are family oriented. We are, I think, all struggling a little bit with how to get our work done, but also keep our families entertained and organized. And so we're trying to make sure that these are family-oriented, family-friendly. We have activities that you can do with your kids or your spouses or your roommates while you're at home. And they're all interactive as well. So our speakers, a lot of them have their videos on today, so you can see our faces. We are going to have a lot of Q&A. Some of it will be sort of structured and facilitated, and then we are going to open it up. As we go through the talk today, please feel free to share your own tips, tricks, advice with us in the chat box. And if we have some time at the end, we can open up some microphones and you guys can ask questions, make your own suggestions, talk about projects that maybe you're aware of or that you've done at home as well. So we are hoping that you all will share that with us too. As I mentioned, there are a couple others in the series. 2 of them are available to download now in our webcast archives. On April 17th, we had a webcast on, we called them Victory Rain Gardens. So all about how to design and install a rain garden in your own yard, if you have the space and the opportunity to do that. And then last Friday, we talked about planting trees for your kids' future canopy. A really cool webcast. Actually, it was a little bit on the basics if you have not done a lot of tree plantings and just kind of want to know how to get started. But a lot of really great hacks and tips and tricks for folks that maybe have done it but haven't had a ton of success with their trees that they have planted, different tree species, what might survive or go well where, how to deal with the tricky sort of understory in the trees that maybe exist in your yard, a little bit on vine and invasive species maintenance, all kinds of things. So a really good one last Friday. And then next Friday, we have our last one that we have scheduled right now in this series on sustainable lawns and family gardening. So a little bit about We're calling it the Zen approach to lawn care. So if you have your turf and you want to hang on to a little bit of it, how do we take care of it with the least amount of impact possible? But also a lot on conservation and landscaping, and ways that you can get your kids involved, helping you out around the garden if that is something that you would like to do. So the May 7th webcast, you can register at the link there. You can also check out the other two set in our archives. We have a really great cast of folks that are joining us today. In a minute, I will sort of turn it over to Dave Hirschman, the founder of Hirschman Environmental. He's going to be our ringmaster for the rest of the presentation today, helping to facilitate. We also have Amanda Rockler, who is a watershed restoration specialist with Maryland Sea Grant Extension. Susan Main, who's an artist with Cultivate and a gallery director and curator with VisArt. Meredith Dash, who works with the Riverwise School Program and the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. We have Tim Harper and Matt Lively from Lively Harper Environmental Sculptures, and Charlene Harper with HG Design Studios. So a lot of folks on today, a lot of really cool perspectives, both from the stormwater and from the art side of the equation. But before we do that, we just want to have a little bit of fun. We always have a couple of poll questions at the beginning. So before I open the poll, I want you to just kind of study these images for a second, and think about which one of these best represents how you would describe yourself as an artist. I will let you sort of interpret them as you see fit. But if you think about that, I'll go ahead and launch the poll now. I'm just kind of curious what we think our artistic ability might be before we get into it. Now, you know, there's no judgment being passed at all on wherever you fall on the end of this, on this end of the spectrum. I think I myself am probably more of a 4, but that doesn't mean I don't doodle every once in a while anyways. And then we have a second question as well that popped up at the same time. And we've been asking this every week, and it's just which of the following best reflects where your head is at this morning. The first option is just sort of, I don't even remember why we bothered naming the days of the week in the first place. I know I can't keep track of what day of the week it is anymore. We've been doing these webcasts on Fridays. Today is Thursday. That has really been throwing me for a loop. We've started wearing pants again, so things are looking up. That's a good sign. Coworkers are on my last nerve, and maybe I'll trade in my fake bookshelf that we've installed for our Zoom meetings for one of those fancy digital backgrounds. All right, so just to give a bit of a report out, thanks for folks who are filling out the poll. We've got a lot of folks that aren't super confident in their art abilities. We've got about 45% consider themselves number 4s, stick figure drawings, but we do have a lot of crafters, a lot of folks that can go on Pinterest, find a cool thing and put it together, which is great because I think that's going to be some of what comes through in today's resources. So about 40% of folks are number 3s, and a lot of modesty. No one is admitting to being a number 1. No one is a Michelangelo among us. And if anyone's interested in the second poll, our leading poll is no one can remember the days of the week anymore. So, all right, I'll go ahead and close that out. Enough fun, no more fun. Just kidding. We'll keep moving things along, but I want to go ahead and turn it over. I don't know, Meredith, if you're going to be the one that takes the lead first, or Tim or Matt, but I'll go ahead. They're going to go ahead and share their screen directly with you guys, and you all can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to start us off here. I'll get my screen sharing once Dave is closed out. I'm Tim Harper. I'm an artist in Richmond, Virginia. We've got lots of folks that work on this project on the call today. Let me see, get this started. I can't talk and do things at the same time. There we go. Hopefully you can see my screen now. So this is Binford Middle School in Richmond, Virginia. And we've got Meredith from the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay on here, and Scotty from SVU Designs. Matt is another artist in Richmond, and also Dave and Charlene both work on this project as well, but I'm going to start us off. And so this middle school, there was a 3-year project the Alliance initiated with Binford Middle School to work on a variety of things, one being a stormwater master plan for the campus. The school is over 100 years old, so it's right in the middle of the city. So it's pretty unique and has some interesting challenges. One of the areas, just one of the little areas we worked on is this left side image, the before, the northwest corner of the school. You can see this natural area here. And the challenge here was you've got the downspout coming down. Is everybody getting this okay? Just make sure my screen's working. Okay, cool. So the downspout would come down here. And if you kind of look in the back, you see this pipe that goes along, and it would just go past this natural area and over top the sidewalk into the street, straight into the storm drain. And we guessed from when you first visit the site, you'll notice this doorway here is the basement. And that's probably part of the reason why that water was not coming out down here. Maybe they had some flooding at some time. But anyway, what the challenge was what could we do to slow this water down and maybe filter it on site here in this natural area before it goes to the storm drain. Now, Binford is a turnaround art school, so it's an art-focused school, and Meredith and the school in working out this plan thought, well, why don't we come up with some kind of sculpture that accomplishes these goals? And that's the after on the right. This is our sculpture we came up with. It's a series of 5 troughs that work sort of like a Roman aqueduct. You'll be able to see that more in a minute. Behind the clouds, but where, the first trough closest to the school is the highest, and they go down from there to the lowest at the front of the site here. And they're fronted with cloud cutouts, and everything set on these thin legs. So the troughs have holes in them so that the water would come in and stored in these troughs and slowly filter down through the holes down to the plantings below. And it sort of mimics a cloud squall. You're also looking at it from this northwest corner of the school is at sort of a main intersection right by the campus, where a lot of people will come through, but in cars, bikes, walking right through this area on this corner. So we really wanted to focus our visual efforts right here. It was an important kind of introduction to the campus here, and I hope you can see that that's a more interesting thing to look at here on the right than what was there on the left, in addition to functioning as a stormwater capture device. And so how we got from the left to the right here is, let me see if I can, all right. Meredith, in working with the kids, they did a lot of watershed education and kind of all went hands-on activities on the campus. So they have an understanding kind of thinking about what needed to go on the campus and thinking about their watershed before she started. And a lot of them really weren't aware that they're only a mile from the James River on this site. So it's pretty important what happens to the water that comes down here. And the kids, these left 2 images are some of the designs the kids came up with for what to do in this corner. And we really, they had a lot of really cool ideas. So we really focused in on this middle one with this idea of clouds. Thought that was pretty interesting. Water is coming down from the clouds down to the site. That ties right back into the whole rain cycle of what's going on here. It also was the first kind of sketch that Matt on the right came up with. This is the first thing he thought of as well. So we thought, that's a pretty serendipitous combination. We'll see what we can do with that idea. I'm going down to the next. These are some more iterations of our idea process. This top left one is that same sort of a continuation of Matt's idea of having these clouds, maybe some different kind of offshoots of the gutters going down the wall with holes in them. That would be a way to slow it down and drain it. It'd be really interesting. That doesn't get the water away from the school, though. You don't want the water just all ponding down here by the building, in addition to being on the basement right here. So that's where that idea of maybe pulling it out with these little Roman aqueducts would be. Those center top images are the first sort of crude sketches of that. That would be an interesting way to pull the water out over this natural area. And then that bottom left is as we continued thinking through this idea, that was the best way to kind of fit all of these troughs, capture as much of water as possible, having these 5 troughs at 90-degree angles. It fitted into that space. It also, if you're thinking about, you're looking at it over from the top here, of course, but from the bottom left of the screen, that's where you're visually approaching the school. So that gave us sort of a place to put some artwork. And you see that bottom right image is Matt's photo collage, more refined version of what that could look like that we shared with the school. And so you can see that, that these thin legs with the cloud cutouts on the front, and that bottom right image. Now going on to the next. So getting from that 2D design we all really liked to an actual built sculpture was a combination of, on one hand, a lot of measurement and research and calculations, along with hands-on trial and error. And the top image there, that's just a screenshot of a model we came up with, but we had to do first measure the roof and figure out how much of the water from the roof was going to go to this corner area of the school. And then do some research at the local weather station to try to get an idea of what could you expect during the year, what kind of rainfall numbers could you expect, and that's where this comes from. So this model is set up so we can test two variables. One being the size of the troughs. Depending on how much rainfall you get, it really matters how big those things are. And then two, how big and how many of the holes to put in each trough. Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to go back. There we go. Okay. And then on more of the hands-on side, the first thing Matt did once we kind of had this finalized idea in mind was to build a desktop size balsa wood model of this. You don't see that here, but with the idea being seeing something in 2D and seeing something in the round are two different things, and to really get a sense of what this was going to look like. And we were able to share that with the school and all the stakeholders, the kids, and everybody involved, so you could all get an understanding of what this is really going to look like. And making some refinements to that, you'll see the bottom left. This is a steel miniature we had fabricated to with the more refined design, and it's just a miniature in exact dimensions of the final thing. And so it also gave Matt an opportunity to kind of think through what are these clouds going to look like. And you can see those cloud cutouts on the front. Those are made out of foam. And then again, sharing that with everybody, it really gives you a sense in 3 dimensions what this was going to look like. Over to the right is our very low tech, but very effective flow test model. So at this point, we knew we wanted the troughs to be at full capacity to be 12 inches deep. We didn't know how many holes or how big those holes were going to be in the troughs. And so this was our test. We got a bunch of these trash cans we could fill to 12-inch capacity and test the different size holes. One reason was to get an understanding of what the visual was going to be. You can't tell until you actually test it. What's this going to look like? Because we really wanted to look like these clouds are raining, and it really mattered how big that stream of water was coming out of those. The other thing was this water coming off of the roof is going to be pretty dirty. It's not like water that come out of your hose. So what we did, this image is from outside of Matt's studio, which is a barn. And off to the left, you can't see there's a pond. And so rather than sticking a hose in these trash cans, what we did was go down and get bucketfuls of pond water, which is full of vegetation and goose poop and all sorts of fun stuff. But it's a lot more like what's going to come off the roof. And we were able to test kind of, at what size is this thing just going to immediately clog up? So that was really important to understand. And then once we settled on a size of holes, we could feed that back into the spreadsheet above. We knew what size. We could start working on how many and really get to where we wanted to be. One more piece of that, the fun sort of low-tech hands-on testing we did was, you can model this and put in all the historical data you want. It doesn't always tell you exactly what's going to happen, how intense a storm's going to be, and throughout the next year, how much water you're going to get. It's just an estimate. So there was always the worry we were going to make these, and the water was never going to get from trough 1 all the way to trough 5 in order to spread the water out over the whole area and also get to all of the plants we were putting down. So one very effective solution Matt came up with was we have little magnets stuck on the bottom of the troughs that you can't really see, but they're those rare earth magnets that are super strong, and they're a little bigger than the holes. So if at any point during the year we're just not getting enough water, you just cover up some of the holes. That trough will fill up faster and dump over to the next. So that was really a kind of a fun, hands-on, low-tech solution. This is a video. Let me see, hopefully that's going.
Now we're just going to walk the
Get that, Meredith? You seeing it okay? Okay. Cool. So this is us putting in one of the troughs. Tallest up there. It's about 9 feet. I'm 7 feet above the ground. But just to give you a sense of the scale of these things. They were pretty big monsters to get in the hole.
All right. Now you can go ahead and set that down, you guys.
But I thought it would be kind of cool to share this part of the process.
And Brennan, are you good where you are?
And then the next video, as it happens, about a week or so, I don't remember, maybe 10 days after we got everything in place and plants are put in and Scotty was done with the landscaping, we had the remnants of a tropical storm come through and, you know, thought, okay, well, we're going to get a good test now of this. This is our first big rainstorm. We were pretty happy. It worked out well. The hurricane winds didn't blow it away, and everything was good. I'm going to turn this part over to Meredith, and I'm going to I'll mute myself. But Meredith, I can go ahead and still be in charge of the slides here.
Great. I was just wondering, I saw that in the chat, we did have somebody ask about the materials. Can Matt speak to that real quick? Like what it was made of?
Sure. It was made of stainless steel and then covered with a zinc coating so that it would limit the amount of rust. And the zinc coating could be reapplied. You know, since we all live here, we could reapply it whenever we want. And so far, we haven't had to reapply it as much as I anticipated in the beginning. So that's good news.
They're also asking stainless 316, marine SS, or STD. I don't know what any of these things stand for, so I'll let you speak to that. I
will say I can't remember.
Oh.
It's been a while. That there was it was all different kinds, especially for the clouds themselves. Were we needed to make them thick enough to where they wouldn't move with the wind, and they had a backing on them. And then the zinc coating was, I can't remember that stuff, but it's like $300 a gallon and is super heavy and works really well. Are they asking about the size of the material, Meredith?
I do not know, but we can return back to it. We'll make sure the chat questions get put in a parking lot so we can, I guess, return to them as we go on. Okay. So, all right, thanks, Matt. So I will continue on. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So not only did we have the sculpture, but I'm going to kind of continue on our walk for a little bit down Binford. And just so that you guys understand that we did more than just a sculpture in the corner, we also put in a native plant labyrinth, which you see in the upper left. And in the middle, you see the entrance of Binford, and you can see the permeable pavement entranceway that was added. We also incorporated all this with art in mind. So for example, you'll see that the pattern that we used, or it's hard to see in this shot, but if you get a close-up, you'll see that we used a pattern to mimic the window pattern, herringbone pattern that's in the windows. And so that pattern was brought down to the floor so you can see it as you're walking in the building. You can look up at those really old windows and see the same pattern going on the permeable pavement entrance. And then you'll also see all these little parts and pieces of labyrinths that you're seeing appear. And that's because the art teacher and the teachers, the science teacher, many of the teachers brought a lot of these practice pieces inside the building. So not only do you have a plant labyrinth on the outside, you're also, oh, Tim, can you make sure you're in present mode? Thank you. And you're also seeing that they use the labyrinth to do activities. So they would do art and mimic other artists that use labyrinths. They also used it as a way to show a path that they were going to take throughout the whole year. You know, what path are you walking? So it was cool to see some of that stuff brought inside. So Tim, we're not in full presentation view for some reason, like full screen. That's what somebody's asking. So make sure we're in the presentation mode. If we can switch to that.
Yeah, I've got it.
Sometimes you have to be, I thought it was for a while.
Yeah, well, it looks to be on mine. Is it back again, y'all?
Not yet.
All right, I'm going to take it out and put it back on.
Okay.
Let's see.
Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Hey, Meredith, this is Dave. So we can take another about 5 minutes with the rest of this while we're pausing, 4 or 5 minutes. Is that good with you?
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right, are you seeing it again now?
Yep.
No, it's still
Not
in
in-
the slide, but
Yeah.
I'd say let's just roll with it. And maybe also mention that Scotty Dilworth is also on this, and she's the one that inspired and installed these labyrinths. So that was a great inspiration for the school.
Yes. Thank you to Scotty. Okay. Well, we're going to next slide, which should be not this one. We're still on the.
Are you on Stacy Levy yet?
No, we should be on the next slide, which is, I think, the Stacy Levy. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't see it. Does anyone else see it? Oh, wait.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll take it onto mine for a minute, and we'll
Okay.
keep going that way, and then.
Let's see if we can do it. There we go. Next,
Right.
next.
There you go.
There we go. Next. Okay, there we go. Thanks, David.
Mhm.
Okay, so from Binford, a lot of the inspiration that all these projects are developing from stem from artivism, or what we're calling artivism, which is kind of art with a meaningful purpose. And I had the pleasure of going to see, so I feel like our Binford project is an example of artivism. It's using art, but like sending a message out that stormwater does happen and we need to make sure we're treating it correctly. In this message, I got to go to Baltimore, where at Towson University, Stacy Levy, the environmental artist, had done an installation where she's showing collected samples. So she went and collected samples from each of the tributaries in the Baltimore watershed, and she put them into clear mason jars and various glass pieces and displayed them in the shape of the actual watershed. And you could actually, on the floor, walk through it and view the places where it was more dirty, the places where it was cleaner, and you could visually see that. And so the message was very clear, like which parts of Baltimore are suffering and which watersheds are impaired versus which are not. And so it was a very interesting way to use messaging. And if you go to her website that I have listed there, you will see even more ways that she's able to be this environmental artist. Next slide. And now if you look on the left, if you want to see another way art is displayed using artivism, when you look at that picture of the fish, you probably just first said, oh, there's some fish underwater, but can you spot the line graph? This is a visual representation of actual data. Jill Pelto is an excellent artist that uses this type of art to bring messages about climate change. And so there was a teacher that replicated this with her 7th grade students. And you can see on the right how they were able to do that by tracing the line graph, by adding their own visual, and again, mixing in a message. I think that this art is much more approachable when you talk about such a issue as climate change, where sometimes kids may have a harder time understanding because it's not as easy to grasp. And so to approach it with art is a better way to evoke the emotion and the understanding before you approach the data. Next slide. And then again, as we're moving to something you can do at home, these are examples of art at home, art and science combined with stormwater. Painting rain barrels is always a fun thing to do, family friendly. You can see in the bottom left, we were able to bring this to a Back to the Bay event festival that takes place in Richmond, Virginia. And basically we were able to tape off little squares so that festival goers had a chance to fill in just one square at a time. You can see on the right, my coworker that works at Alliance with me on the forestry program, she was able to do, this is her at-home project. She's a wonderful artist and was able to do the different steps that you need to take if you really want to prime it for long-term care. So she was able to sand it down and actually do the painting after she applied like a base coat. So we have some details, I think, on how you can actually do that later in the slides. Next one. And then again, easy activity at home. This is something that we've done with teachers and students. You can see here. One way I would do it is to do a before and after. So you, as the parent, could paint, if you have chalk or paint or chalk paint, whichever you have, paint a giant blue line down your driveway or a sidewalk or the middle of the street if you want. And have one side be your before. So before you go out and adventuring with your kids, have them draw. What's in your watershed? What do you think is there? Have them draw. And then take a watershed walk. Go through your neighborhood, look for things. And when you come back on the other side, draw, now what do you think's in your watershed? And I guarantee you will see more things appear in the after shot than you will before. So this is a great way to get kids involved in thinking about watershed. Next slide. And then last but not least, at least for ideas here, would be for if you really want to go into some detail with color theory. And I am not an artist, so I would let the artist speak for this, but this is a great way to introduce color theory through using photographs. So this, of course, is an example of the Chesapeake Bay, and you could talk about the different colors that you see. And of course, on the left, you have a beautiful summer day, and on the right, the photo is actually after a image that was taken after a hurricane. And so you can see the stormwater runoff and the sediment that's entering the bay and how the colors change. And you could talk about, I think it's called like shade and hue and, you know, all those art words that I don't know, that would be examples. So any photograph would do, but it would be cool to use a stormwater photograph and then just teach about color wheel and those lovely art terms. Next slide. And then this is just a mishmash of activities to just throw more at you for at-home activities. There is a storm drain art project that takes place in Richmond and a lot of cities across the Chesapeake Bay region every year. It's kind of like a contest, but it's something that would be really fun to enter if you truly get inspired. And then on the right, you're going to see kind of a combination activity where we combined found object art with nature poetry, and doing, if you have magnetic poetry, or even if you just printed and cut out a couple of words for your kids to arrange around something that they make in nature. Again, today would be a perfect day to take a walk outside after it rains and see what you can find. And then on the very right, in the video, if we can play that, you'll see a quick loop of what took place at an event, a session that I attended at a conference, where we actually combined, oh no, it left. It combined theater arts with fine arts and stormwater. So it was basically a narrator narrating the seasons, the story of the seasons, and we were able to be a role. And so I was assigned the role Dead Zone. So anytime your role in the story was called, you got to come up and add to this collaborative painting. At the very end, once we were finished, there we go, we can kind of see it going on. So people are adding with different modes like paintbrushes and different media types. And there were things added like, you know, road salts and cow manure and all kinds of things that happen to our state during the seasons. And then there was a piece of paper that was like a contact paper piece that was peeled off and put, if we go back to the slide, next to it on a different canvas, so that you actually, in the end, had two pieces of artwork as a result of this project. So it would be something, again, you could replicate at home, where you have kids together as a family decorate one piece and then separate it out. And that's it. Oh, and here's all of our contact information. I see a lot of you asking good questions, and I would encourage you to ask questions. Any of us are willing to help answer any questions about the sculpture, the Binford project especially, and again, about just having arts integration. And I will say that a lot of what I did is coming from ideas that I've gotten from many conferences and in the environmental ed world.
Thank you. Thanks to Tim and Matt and Meredith and Scotty in the background. And I know that there were some chat questions coming in, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on to our next artist. And the idea, and this is kind of a backyard, but I would encourage the Binford team. It looks like you've already been answering some of the chats in the box there. So if you can continue to do so, I think there's only a couple more. And we're going to turn it over to Amanda. And well, you may have noticed in that previous thing that we have a little puzzle here. In both presentations, we have family associations. So if you can kind of guess at the end what these family associations are, but we have Amanda as the next one. And
Yep.
Amanda is going to introduce somebody near and dear to her.
Yeah, hi everyone out there. So my role is just on this is just to introduce my mom, Susan Main. She's an amazing artist and a gallery director and curator here in Rockville, Maryland. So I'll turn it over to her, but I have a little video at the end. I'm participating in the project, so I'm hoping that you all want to participate as well.
Hi, thank you, Amanda. Wonderful daughter, scientist, joiner of people. And thank you already. I'm inspired by what I saw from Meredith and Tim and Matt's project. Amazing. And those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping we'll see more of as we start to integrate these ideas into real living projects that are also beautiful to look at and inspiring. And I love that the kids were involved at the Binford School for putting together those initial sketches and getting those wheels rolling. Fantastic work. I'm super psyched about that. I'm going to put it on share screen now and see if I can make my video work. Hold on one second while I do this. And okay, can everybody see my screen? Just give me the thumbs up. Awesome. So yes, I'm an artist and an educator and a curator. I work at VisArts, and I'm the founder of a new project called Cultivate LLC. And we're doing projects and residencies and workshops that deal with investigating landscape, place, and the commons. And so I'm going to talk about this project called Yard of the Yard. And it started out not really having anything to do with environment, but we were focusing more and more on environment through a number of kind of invitations that I had to present this. And so I'll talk all about that. But first I want to have people start to look down at the ground for this project. I think we get used to walking through space. We don't have any kind of awareness of where we are. We're thinking about the future, where we have to be. And so this project is about slowing way down and looking at a small little piece of the ground. And what I'm doing is asking people who want to participate to consider what patch of ground is your yard. And this can be public, private, in a park, it can be on a stoop, it can be in a pasture, it can be on a porch, any kind of spot that you spend a little bit of time on. And I've had people come to me and say, oh, well, I don't have a yard. And I'd say, okay, well, you live in Brooklyn, you live on the street, you're walking on some kind of sidewalk each day. It's easy to go out and make your Yard of the Yard project in those spaces. You just have to start to think about where you spend your time. And I'm hoping that it's a little bit of, you know, because I like the poetry of art, that there's kind of this relationship that starts to form between you and that patch or that plot. So the first thing you do is you just go out on your yard and you mark it off. And you'll see some crazy ways that people have marked it off. I'm a little bit more like, I've got to measure everything, and I've made this just with some paracord that I got at Home Depot and some tent stakes and stuck it into the yard. And right now I have 2 different yards that are in my own yard that I go out to and I'm filming over time. And I'm interested as an artist in just light passing across the surface, little things that happen. And this was me raking away the leaves from and exposing the soil. So you can use string, sticks, draw with chalk on your hardscape, whatever you've got. And then you do the dreamy part. Like, what am I gonna do in my yard? Am I gonna do anything? Am I gonna plant something? Am I gonna just invite some friends over? How about I watch the grass blow? It can be anything that you can imagine, infinite possibilities. So here's an example. Well, before I start the video, let me just say that what I've done is I've asked many people to participate in the project. And so we're bringing all of these yards together and I'm presenting them in different ways. Right now during COVID-19, I've decided that I'm going to present it on my website, the Cultivate website. So I'm getting ready to unveil it there. And I'm also doing little bits and pieces on Instagram at Cultivate Projects. And what I'm interested in ultimately, if we ever get out of our own houses, is that we'll go back to projecting these at scale in different environments. And I'm interested in them happening in galleries or in grocery stores or in school lobbies. And you will discover all the different ways that people start to look down at the ground and think about their impact, think about the ways that they use the ground, think about what's happening underneath their feet, the soil quality. You can collect a soil sample. You can think about watershed possibilities, what kinds of species are there. When I made the plot, I started thinking, this is really scientific. Look at me, I'm doing a science thing. I'm making a little plot and everybody can get some sense that I have some kind of like parameters that are really like scientific. But then of course, you know, with my yards, they all become this sort of just exercise in watching. But this is Frank McCauley. Frank actually is my colleague at VisArts. He's my assistant curator. And this is called Spirit Plot. Here's another yard of the yard. And this is a collaborator of mine. We went to do a residency together through Project Soils up on Governor's Island, which had Mary Mattingly, who is an amazing environmental artist who created a barge. She made a food forest that's on a barge, a full out garden and forest that's developing maybe to climax. But the neighborhood can go on this barge, they can learn about how to grow things. And so Mary is the resident artist in Swale House where I was, and we brought Project Soils artists there as well. And Project Soils artists are working interdisciplinary projects with scientists who are from the New York City Urban Soils Institute. So MJ said, oh yeah, I'll do something, I'm taking a nap. This is a yard that comes from Patagonia. This is actually my brother, who's a cowboy slash business person slash environmentalist. He did holistic range management on a very large ranch in near Big Sur for many, many years. And I don't know if any of you know about holistic range management, but it is a way of caring for the soil and riparian areas, regenerating growth. And so here's the little bit of the graze part. This is the manure that was left over, and I'll play this. And you have to watch very carefully because there's a little bit of the interconnectedness of species and ground and grass here. So you see that little fuzzy caterpillar moving through there. So after the graze, before the butterfly. I love that. So thinking about water, thinking about making your yard of the yard. Amanda made this beautiful little yard of the yard decorated with blooms. Very simple string in her yard. So this is how you take action. You point the camera at the ground, and you make sure that the camera doesn't wiggle. You know, I know that people take liberties with this. Some people are sticking their hand up in the air and they're holding it over their yard, but I'm saying to make it the best quality, you want to try to use a tripod or hook it onto a tree or some kind of way that doesn't do any damage, but that you can get the camera suspended over your yard. And use a cell phone camera. I think it's the easiest way for anyone to participate in this. Then make sure you get the whole yard in your frame and then shoot a video. I say 2 to 10 minutes. My cousin sent me a video, it was 30 minutes. She had it on slow-mo, it's amazing. But that will go in a gallery, not on this PowerPoint. And then send the video via Google Drive or Dropbox or WeTransfer, any way that you think you can get that information to me. Send it to me at cultivateprojects.net. Tell me where you are, what you were doing, what you were thinking. You can send a soil sample. I'll have it tested and sent back to you with the results. And of course, if you need any help, you can connect with me. If you just want to write me a message and say, I want to try to do this, I can send you a kit. I can send you more instructions. Here's another yard of the yard from Powell, Wyoming. This is a non-artist. She said, all I do is look at my birds and their bird feeder, which is a little box that's not too far off the ground. So she set up this elaborate, crazy day of trying to film those birds, and has a beautiful footage of all the different birds that are visiting that feeder over time. Here's 2 more stills from yard videos, one called Yard Bling, where the sunlight catches on all of these like lawn ornaments, and they're all stacked up in the yard of the yard. You can see the yardstick wedged in there. And then to the right, a land survey. So a wind comes up and blows the ribbon of that yard of the yard. Nara Park, an amazing artist who lives in Washington, D.C. She's writing a letter to her father who passed away recently, and then she buries it at the foot of this tree. So this is the very beginning of this, you know, and my technology has gone really fast. So I had this crazy, like, Apple webcam, like hooked up in a tree with a dryer vent over it, pointed at my yard. And I hooked it up to my computer and I sent it to my colleague in Kabul, Afghanistan. And he showed me 1 yard of his yard. And then we got together and we did a telematic performance of this piece at UMBC, where we dropped our yards side by side, and they're projected on 2 wooden plinths, and they just are there in time for, it was like, I think it was like sun going down in my place, sun coming up in his place. And so, no, it was the opposite. He was getting ready to go home from work, and I was just waking up. And so we brought our 2 yards together in a show of solidarity of how the earth is connected. We're all connected to the earth. And it was a really special moment. And it was a project that I felt I wanted to continue onward. So everybody's yards are finally touching. And this is another example of a test that I'm making in my studio. This is a yard that came from Palestine, a refugee camp in Palestine. The artist sticks his feet into the ground and says this beautiful poem. And then I'm thinking about kind of environments where this will be projected to make people contemplate the ground even more. So that's basically what I'm saying. It's a tiny little spot on Earth, so small. We could barely fit inside of 1 yard by 1 yard, but it has all of this rich history, biological, geological, historical, cultural, meteorological. It's all right there in that one thing, in that one spot. And if we just started to pay attention to it, we'd start to understand this kind of rhythm. I just read a beautiful essay by Deborah Bird Rose, who recently passed away, where she talks about shimmer, the idea of shimmer as bringing us all together in one kind of sense of the wholeness of the world and all the interconnected parts of it, and that we're part of nature. So this is more about what's happening. I told you about version 1. Version 2, I'm working with artists across the globe, and we're going to do another telematic performance, I hope, that will have to do with all the different time zones. Okay, so here's the great surprise and wonderful video that came from my beautiful grandson. That's it.
That
That
is
was
really,
terrific.
that's wonderful. Looks like, Amanda, you have a drainage issue.
That's my driveway. Yep.
So that is the stormwater part of it. Well, thanks, Susan. That was pretty amazing. Just that simple concept and the global tying together. Thank you so much for sharing. And
You're welcome.
our next, yeah.
Yeah, feel free to contact me because I am looking for more and more partners.
All right. I think probably some people on this webcast today are going to be sending you their own square yard of ground. Yeah, so people who want contact information and everything else, all of these slides will be put out by CSN. But your information is right there, Susan, right? The Cultivate projects. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Our next part is the hacking part. And our hacker today is the very accomplished stormwater engineer with an artistic flair. You don't find many of those. And that would be Charlene Harper. Are you around, Charlene? Are you ready to hack?
I am ready to hack, and it helps to be married to an artist.
Honestly, you gave away the other family
Oh,
association
sorry.
on this webcast. That's okay. It was a little obscure.
Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to do was entertain some questions. If you have any questions for our artist panel that you would like to have a general discussion, please put it into the chat box. We've prepared a few just in case we didn't get any takers, but let me give it just a second to see if anybody wants to submit a topic for discussion to the panel.
I would say go ahead with yours, one of yours, perhaps, Charlene, and that
Okay.
time the pump.
Fantastic. So let's go to our next slide then, and we will hit the first question, which is really thinking about all of these folks that are at home. What are some of the ways that we could adapt the measures installed at Binford, for example, for a residential installation, since that was such a large space? How could we bring that into our homes? And so I'll ask you to unmute yourselves, and let's see, we're going to start with Meredith.
Sure.
You have some thoughts?
I do. I think, and maybe Scotty can maybe add on to this, but I would say that what you want to start with is wander around your house and see where your downspouts might be. A lot of people aren't even aware that their water is running off the roof through a gutter and into a downspout. And so even identifying simply where those go and how they run off into your yard. Are they outputting onto grass? Is it pavement? Is it, what is it, a mixture? Like, where is that going? That's like a first step in trying to even just figuring out what you might want to do. So I'll leave it there and then see if Scotty wants to add to that.
Oh, yeah, I'm eager to hear from Scotty, but I want to riff off you a little bit, Meredith, on that.
Okay.
Something I was thinking about with the measuring, and obviously I think what Tim and Matt did was maybe beyond the average homeowner, but if you did identify a downspout and you had a gallon jug, and like you went out during a day like this once an hour, and you timed how long it would take in seconds to fill up the gallon jug, and then take an average, and then you would be able to figure out during the duration of, say, today's storm, the gallons of water that come off your roof. You know, just to have that number is sort of a magical number that people probably, that kind of ties into Meredith's idea that math is part of this as well. But maybe that number could turn into something artistic. Anyway, Scotty, do you want to add anything here?
You're on mute. Unmute yourself, Scotty.
Hello now. Anyway, I was just going to piggyback on what Meredith said about your downspouts. I do landscape design a lot for residential as well as small commercial. And people really haven't even thought of that issue as they watch their whole backyard erode or something that's just starting to become a major issue. But if you're able to do that with your downspouts, there are several ways to treat that water. You can pipe those downspouts out to a beautiful rain garden where, you know, there's many instructional videos as well as manuals online on how to do that. You don't have to spend a fortune and do a bunch of excavating. You can actually make that a project for home and just read the specs of what you're supposed to do based on the amount of water you're taking off your roof. So there's several, again, things online about rain garden templates and design, but that's a fun way to add a different type of garden that's also a functional space. And I often also use the black perforated pipe by taking the type with the cuts in it still away from the home, but maybe through a landscape bed where you have multiple shrubs and get it sort of in the center and let it act as a soaker hose. You do want to make sure the grade is away from the house, but that's just another simple way of something you probably already have at the house to be able to use that water. So it's thinking about really keeping your water on site and then putting it somewhere that it can be treated by plants is what is a great solution that's very simple.
Nice.
Oh, it does look like the chat box is popping here, so
Oh yeah.
ready to go to that.
Yeah, let me throw this out at you. There's a person on the site that has cleared an old junkyard from their back lot, and they have found some really interesting things. So they're wondering, they found an old bicycle in there, cinder blocks, and what kind of ideas could we give for using recycled materials into rain garden and art projects? Who would like to chime in first?
I would say that Tim should chime in as a found object artist.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, yeah, I was off in the clouds thinking about what all you could do with that. Wow. So you got an old bike. Gosh, I don't know what, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things.
I wish we could show the pictures. Tim took an old bicycle and he turned it into a rain barrel pump so that it was a bicycle powered pump that would let you have power to a hose to be able to have a kid actually go through and move the water under bike power. So that was a pretty cool project.
Yeah, that's true. That was one using an old bike. So you like put the bike on one of those exercise things that holds it in place. You know, the ones that have the little spinny wheel at the back that your back wheel pushes on, and you just replace that with a marine motor, a marine pump that you would use to pump out your boat, right? And rather than using electricity to turn that motor, is using the back wheel of the bike to turn that motor, and then just it already has. Those marine pumps already has the place to put a hose, so hook the hose up to that so that you could pump water. Did that a couple of places once. I guess one school in the city, or two different schools, and one of them was because they had a great big cistern. They could capture a lot of water, but no pressure to take it all to the gardens. They wanted the kids to be able to water with it, so it was a way to use the bike to push the water out. That's one idea.
I was thinking for the yard of the yard, definitely you need to do a yard of the yard before and after. And so go out there right now and take a video of that junk. And then I think, you know, there's a couple of sort of integrations with what we talked about this morning. If you've got this bike, you know, that still something turns on it, can you set up flower pots on it with holes in the bottom, or a bucket or something to start to spread that water? I would be playful and not think it has to be as finished and beautiful as what happened at Binford. I would be much more experimental and just sort of see what happens, and then do a yard of the yard post and send those to me.
Wonderful. Matt, we haven't heard from you yet. Would you like to chime in on either of the questions?
Sure. Usually when I encounter stuff like bikes or problems or whatever, I look at the problem and figure out how I can solve it or do something different to the problem. And if I have stuff to use, whether it's a bike or something else, I'll try to incorporate that into the problem. And I rarely, just as an artist, I don't think about how it is that, or the thing that I want to make. It's mostly a combination of what the problem is, what I have, and then you kind of smash those together, and whatever happens, happens. And then the other times when I find junk, I just take it over to Tim's house and let him do something with it.
Yeah, so whoever submitted that question, you have go make stuff and then send us all the pictures. I want to see it. No pressure.
No pressure.
I love Susan's idea too.
Yeah. Susan had suggested, if you're not following the chat, to make a bench with the cinder blocks. We've seen actually some pretty cool benches, even just made by putting railroad ties through cinder blocks. But you can make benches out of the cinder blocks and then watch what happens in your rain garden. So that's fantastic. Let's take us to the next slide. David. There we go. So any suggestions on what folks could do at home with kids to help them connect? And Meredith had some fantastic ideas to start us off. Amanda, would you like to chime in on this also?
I will just say that for the sake of time. So I sent David some resources, and I think he'll be posting them with this and Meredith's resources as well. So you guys will get a whole bunch of links to different projects to do with all different age ranges for families coming to you soon.
Fantastic.
Charlene, I know that there were several people wanting to know about funding. It's a little bit non-artistic and practical, but that kind of helps get the projects done. And I don't think, you know, some of these are too small to be, you know, like a NIFWF project, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. So just curious from the artists about simpler, smaller scale ways of maybe getting a community grant or arts grant or something of that nature.
I can talk a little bit about that. There are some smaller grants through counties for smaller art projects for independent artists and or scholars. There is a creative grant through the state of Maryland, which is to fund smaller art projects because they're not lots of money. There are those kinds of things. And of course you could do searches for other art grants. And that's kind of what helps us create sort of social practice projects at VisArts, is to encourage artists to find those smaller grants so that you can at least get the project started, and then maybe you can find another sponsor that will take it to the next level.
That's good advice.
I would also mention there are small grants available through like things like Cliff Bar, Patagonia, some of those organizations that offer these smaller, maybe $500 to $1,000 grants that could get you started if you really had an idea that you wanted to pursue. And so I can put some of those lists of funding opportunities together and share for the resources.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, Charlene, I guess we have maybe another couple minutes if you want to keep hacking, and I guess at some point I'll cut you off, but I think we have some haikus coming up.
Oh, do you want to get to the haiku before? I know we're butting up against the end of our time. Actually, I think we're over it, but do you want to get to the haiku? That is such a fun project.
Yeah, maybe we'll do the haiku interlude. And then, yeah, we got a few here by some known and some unknown authors. So yeah, Meredith had the Binford School one. And then we have the somewhat famous haiku poet in a very small way, Nam Hisri. And I don't know, you know, there's a very famous haiku author named Moti that's also, I think, a participant in this webcast. So this is kind of a throwdown. You can read some of these haikus and add your own in the chat box, which I guess, David, we could leave that chat box open for another half hour or so, if kind of make a haiku competition here.
Yeah, absolutely. We can leave that open for a while.
Charlene, are any of these that you particularly like?
I like quarantine at home. Are the BMPs working or playing hooky?
That's, yeah, for the stormwater inspectors.
I will also say that I did challenge, so the reason that I wrote that Binford haiku originally was because my 14-year-old actually had to write a haiku for a assignment in English and was refusing to do it and did not want to do it. And I was like, fine, I bet I can write a better one than you. And so we sat there and had a war until I wrote the better haiku, in my opinion. And so I think it is a good way to get kids, you know, going, because haiku is so short. It doesn't take a lot, you know. And I will tell people I have a sheet that actually has the counts. So if you don't know the exact counts of a haiku, it's supposed to have this many syllables, you know, and this many lines. I have a sheet that kind of explains some basic poetry and the lineage for each. So I could share that.
Wonderful. And are we only taking them in the chat, or do we have any alternative ways of gathering and sharing the haiku?
Well, I think David, can they email their haikus to you if they're want to take the rest of the day
absolutely.
on them?
I think that would be great. We amongst our presenters today put together a little Google Doc that we were collecting stormwater haikus in. So if folks want to email them to me, wood.csn@outlook.com, I'd be happy to add them to our doc, and we can make them available on the page for today's webcast as well.
All right. This is wonderful. Thank you to Susan and Amanda. I'm going to try that. I actually was expanding my garden yesterday and found a pair of pliers probably 6 inches in the ground that were probably from 1940. They were fused open. Anyway, that was that might be my contribution. But the Binford team, always dynamic and wonderful and alarming in their own way. And let's see, David, do you have a way to take this home? Oh, we have the rain chains too, right?
Yeah,
That was-
so I did
yeah.
have a couple more, two more resource slides on here that I just wanted to let folks know about that have a couple other ideas too. And just some links for where you can get some ideas or where you can get started if you are interested in them. It's not to say that these are the be all end all for some of these resources, but a quick Google, you know, they seem like pretty helpful things if these are ideas or activities you're interested in. First, I'll just point out, these are all the links that Amanda referenced earlier, with some coloring books for families and for kids, educational resources and videos related to stormwater activities for kids, as well as the links for John Dawson's environmental art and for the Biz Arts Center. So if folks are interested in any of that, you can check out all of these links. And then this slide has just a couple of other activities. Rain activated art is a cool one. We have done a feature on work that was done in Hampton Roads by Ask HR Green is the organization, and they used it as a messaging campaign in the community where they used this hydrophobic spray paint, basically, where they created these stencils with stormwater messaging in high traffic areas outside of schools or things like that. And they create the stencil, which is invisible when it's dry and sunny out. But once the rain happens, you can see the message really clearly on the ground. There's a picture of it in some of the earlier slides around the introduction to today's webcast. But if you want to read about how Hampton Roads did it, you can look at the inspiration link. The how-to, that's a company or an organization that's, you know, got pretty famous from doing that work, but it has an interesting how-to guide on thinking about how you can put together a stencil and some links for where you can find the material. I think you can get it in a way that's expensive, or you can find it in a way or make it in a way that's cheaper, depending on how committed you are to your rain activated art. But you can definitely, you know, do this at a community scale, or you could do it in your driveway if you wanted to do that. Rain barrel painting, Meredith talked about that a little bit. Here's a link from Fairfax County on the couple of easy steps for prepping your rain barrel for painting. Rain chains, I'll save that for last because I have a couple other photos from Alana Hartman from West Virginia, who did a DIY rain chain out of some recycled bottles, which I thought was really cool. But rain chains are basically, you can use them as sort of an artistic downspout replacement, where the surface tension in the water helps to carry the rain from your roof down this artistic chain into the ground. And if you Google them, there's a million different ways that you can do this, and people have Pinterest is full of it if you are someone that is into Pinterest. So there's sort of an inspiration post for a whole bunch of different ideas, as well as a YouTube video on how to install one. Principles of landscape design. This is just something that I pulled from Michigan State's extension on some of the more artistic principles behind that landscape designers use, and Charlene and others who are professional landscape designers, you can tell me that's a load of bull if that's not the case. But if folks are just kind of interested in some of the theories out there behind it. And then these last two were recommendations from an art teacher friend of mine that works with kids, and things that they have done. Nature journaling is a really good way of getting your kids sort of involved in a little bit of art, where you can just kind of go outside with a little journal and have them make observations and do some doodles, and they can do it however they want. One of the things I like about the link that is here is it has some suggestions if your kids are maybe interested in the idea of nature journaling, but they're not into drawing. It doesn't have to be drawing. There are other ways that you can do it. My wife is a teacher. She does a lot of like sensory exploration stuff, where you do your journaling by going out and you find different things based on texture or smell or sound, and you sort of document that kind of stuff instead of doing drawings. And it's a fun way of doing it. And then the nature weaving was a new idea to me, but you can go out and you kind of create these little looms with sticks or twigs that you can find in your yard or on a walk or something like that. And then you run twine or something like that in between them. And then you thread in between the yarn different things that you can find, flowers or feathers or things like that you might find in your yard. It makes some pretty cool little projects that didn't look too difficult to do if you wanted to try it with your kids. So just a couple of other suggestions if you were so inclined. Oh yeah, and so I'll just close out by showing you the rain chain, if I can find it here.
Yeah. Ilana really worked hard working out the kinks of this.
Yes, and so I will post this document. This is a PDF that Ilana sent us, and I'll put this up on the website along with the recording and the slides for today. But this she walks us through how she went about designing her rain chain using these upcycled bottles, just seltzer bottles and soda bottles, and a few zip ties. And she's kind of got some instructions and a few, lessons learned, things that she ran into and how she fixed them. But you can see how she strung them down from her gutter system to create this little downspout replacement rain chain with some really simple to find materials around the house. And she did it with her kids. So she has promised us an update when it rains to show us how it's working. And so maybe if she sends one over, I can make that available too. All right, so I think that's all we have for today. I don't know, Dave, you asked me to close it out, so I don't know if you had any other final words of wisdom that you wanted to share with folks, but I'll just thank everybody for tuning in today. And, from CSN, thank all of our speakers for joining us. It is a really cool topic that I was excited about myself today. I was really looking forward to just listening to you all. So I really enjoyed it. Hopefully everyone else tuning in found it refreshing and inspiring, and will look to beautify their own homes and gardens as a result. So thank you all again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for having us.
All right, I will leave the chat open in case anybody wants to drop anything else in here, but otherwise I will stop the recording and go ahead and wrap the meeting up. So thanks again, everybody, and have a good weekend.
Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.